Now, these are social features that we're actually super excited about. We even have designs for them. We're trying to do to keep leveling up core systems and core features of the game. So there's another thing here, performance-based matchmaking. So I announced that right here at BlizzCon just last year, and that's actually something that we fully implemented and brought into the game. But once we did so, we realized that it wasn't doing everything that we wanted it to do. But the good news is that the learnings from performance-based matchmaking have informed a lot of the decisions that we've made about ranked play that Joe's going to be talking about here in a minute. So we're going to keep discussing the things that we're thinking about with you, and we're going to keep trying to bring the most impactful things we can to this game, the things that impact as many players as possible. And we ask you to keep giving us your feedback, keep telling us what you love, telling us what we should be fixing, and we're going to keep trying everything we can to prioritize those things for you. Now, I do get a lot of questions about prioritization. One of the common ones is, okay, why do you make a hero instead of going off and making clans? That's a really good question. And the reason is because we have different parts of our team focused on different things. The content team is a really important part of Heroes of the Storm. They're focused exclusively on bringing you guys new heroes, new battlegrounds, reworking existing heroes and battlegrounds. They're also doing our awesome events that we have and bringing skins to the game. And these things, this content is really the heartbeat of the game. These are the things that keep those of us who are playing it actively really engaged with it, but they're also the moments that we are able to create that bring people who maybe have checked out or who have never played, it brings them in to check us out. So those are important things. We're going to keep prioritizing content. It's a really important thing that we do. And I want to say, this has been a really great year for us for content. It's something that we've iterated on a lot, and I think we're really hitting our stride. On the hero front, awesome year for heroes, starting with my personal favorite, Blaze, coming out in January, going into, yeah, give it up for Blaze. He's got some man attention now, but I still love him, we got, going to Deckard, Kane, coming in the back half of the year here, Yrel, Mephisto, most recently Mal'Ganis coming in. Yeah, we like Mal'Ganis. All right, and then now here at BlizzCon today, we're just introducing Orphea to you. So, yeah. We're excited about her, and to hear more about Orphea, definitely check out our deep dive panel that's happening tomorrow morning.
10 a.m., I think.
10 a.m.
10 a.m., all right. It's not just about new heroes. Reworks are a really important part of the game. It's something that we're really starting to do consistently, alternating between brand new heroes and pairs of hero reworks. We've gone back to some of the most iconic and earliest heroes of the game in the past year, from Kerrigan to Diablo to Raynor himself. These reworks have really reinvigorated characters that some of us may have lost interest in. It really helps us mix up the meta and keep things fresh as well. And then there's Battlegrounds. It's been a fun year for Battlegrounds. We finally brought Warcraft into the Nexus with Alterac Pass, but we also went back to some previous ones. Yeah, thanks for Alterac Pass. Hanamura was a battleground that we put in. We got a lot of feedback out, and we took it out. And then we reworked it and brought it back as Hanamura Temple, and I think it's in a really great place now. Garden of Terra, another battleground that really needed a second look. We've done a bunch of iteration on it, changed it pretty dramatically, and we think it's in a much better spot. But it's not just the heroes that are iterating and evolving, it's also the battlegrounds. Of course, then themed events. You guys maybe, if you've been playing with us for a while, you might remember in the early days of Heroes of the Storm, a skin would come into the game very randomly, and that's because we made it very randomly. We'd have one cool idea, Sammy would draw a picture, we'd go off and make it, and it would drop into the game as soon as we could get it in. Now we're really focusing the team on really cohesive themed events that let us explore really interesting visual and thematic elements that you can't really see anywhere else in any other Blizzard game. So from Mecha Storm at the beginning of the year to the Dark Nexus, yeah, Mecha Storm was rad, I love Mecha Storm. We may go back there again someday. Nexomania this summer, bringing luchadors into the game, yeah. And then most recently, with our Fall of King's Crest, events have been not just a place that skins come into the game, but it's also been a place where we have these quest events that come in, and you've seen us evolve those over the year. I'll have Joe talk about that a little bit more in a minute here. But this is our celebration of the game and the magic of Heroes of the Storm that lets us play in all these awesome worlds that we can't do anywhere else. This year we did something new as well. We dug into the story of the Nexus itself for the first time. Starting with a comic book that came out alongside Deckard Cain in the beginning of the year, we really explored the Raven Lord and dug into this idea of King's Crest and what's going on there. And as you guys have seen now, that have paved the way for Orphea here. I'm pleased to announce that the 4th comic book in this series will be coming out later on this month. It's all about Orphea, so if you want to know more about her, her backstory, her personality, that's going to be the spot to check it out. So as you can see, content is incredibly important for the game, but it's not the only thing that we have teams focused on. Like our content, our feature team is focused on making many additions and improvements to features and technology patch over patch, because the game as an entirety needs to keep evolving for us. So while, as I said, we didn't hit all of the things that we've talked about, it's still been an amazing year so far for our features as well. From voice chat, which was a long time coming, and I think it's been an excellent addition to the game, to third bans, which again, something we've been asking for a really long time, and our continual, never-ending effort for matchmaking, which we've actually made giant strides on this year, and we will continue to focus a lot of effort on. And then most recently, we made some big changes to Team League, and Joe has some really cool information about that as well. But these are things that, core parts of the game, new additions, we're gonna keep working on them, but it's been an awesome year for features as well. But we're here to talk about what's next. So I wanted to set the stage for that stuff, and let's get Joe up here now. Let's start talking about features coming soon for Heroes.
Thanks, Ko. Hello, Heroes. I'm Joe Pipora. I'm the lead system designer for Heroes of the Storm. I joined the team in October last year. I'm going to talk really fast. I have a lot of things
Jsem tady. Zase banujem, to bude hra.
Over the last half a year for 2018, we made a number of changes to the way that we've been handling
Jak
live
to?
events. Starting with Nexomania, Echoes of Alterac, and Fall of King's Crest. We asked players to make some decisions in these events. We've been trying to double down on these. We like the stories we get to tell inside the Nexus. The Nexus is the place where anything can happen, where worlds can smash together. We can tell any story we want. It's exciting because we're giant geeks. So we get to really play in this space because we love these characters. So let's go through. We asked players to make a number of decisions during the course of these events. I thought it'd be fun to show you what actually happened. In Nexomania, we asked players to back either La Parca Lunara or La Pantera Sonia. Who backed Sonia?
Yeah.
Who backed Horse Lady? Horse Lady wins! Big win for Lunara. Very proud of her. Next up, we welcomed the conflict in Azeroth to the Nexus. For the first time ever, we had a blue team versus red team battle. Wait, we always have a blue team versus red team battle. That said, we asked players, do you want to back the Alliance? Or do you want to back the Horde? Well, in the end, the Horde wins with 58%. Congratulations to all combatants. As an Alliance player, I salute us. Go blue team. Next up, during the Fall of King's Crest, we asked players to choose either select a blue purified tombstone mount or a red defiled tombstone mount. Matt, what do you think they selected?
The red one.
For the Horde! Not at all appropriate, but all right, red. What do you guys think, red or blue? Such a smart crowd. Such a beautiful crowd. Thank you very much. 64% decided to go with the red one. I think it's because it had horns. But that's just my take. We're very excited about the sorts of things we've done with live events in 2018. And looking forward, our December event is just one step further. Look forward to that. The Nexus is a playground overflowing with limitless opportunities to entertain and surprise us. So we're going to keep doubling down on that through 2019 as well. But that's not all we're here to talk about today. There's new features and systems coming down the pipe. Roles. Heroes of the Storm has lived with warriors, supports, assassins, specialists, and multi-class variants for some time. But as the game has matured, these classifications don't fully reflect the intent behind these heroes. There's a big difference between Sonya and Johanna. And new players don't necessarily know that when we call them both warriors. Now, we've gotten a lot of feedback from the community over the course of the last year to longer than that, potentially, that sometimes we need to do a better job of educating our players. This is a step in that direction. All right? It seems small, but it's really important. We want to make it clear for those players who are starting, who might not understand the interplay between these roles. We want to give them a better idea of what they're supposed to be doing in lane, what their role is. So I'm just going to dive right in. First up, tank. It shouldn't surprise anybody. Of course we have tanks. They're not bruisers. They're different. All right, it's like a Nubarak. This is Murden. This is Stitches. Okay? They're going to dive in. They are formidable juggernauts to protect their team by absorbing attacks from the enemy and blocking their retreat. Then we have bruisers like Artanis, Sonya, Chen. You know, they're tough fighters capable of getting in the thick of it and dealing out some punishment. And we got healers like Lieutenant Morales, Brightwing, Rhaegar, my personal favorite, and focus on restoring health and aiding their team. And we have supports. Supports like Abathur, Medivh, or Zarya focus on boosting their allies and kind of providing unique advantages to their team. Lost Vikings can soak 3 lanes. That's really good if you bother to do it properly. Melee assassins such as Illidan, Kerrigan, Valera, these are high-octane damage dealers that jump on their enemies to really lay on the pain. And then we have our ranged assassins, like Orphea today. Jaina, Li Ming, and Sergeant Hammer. They're hard-hitting damage dealers that attack their enemies from a safer distance. We think this is going to this is a big step forward for heroes. There's more that we're going to do in this arena, but looking forward to 2019. You can look forward to seeing these soon. Next, this is big. Here's the Storm. Once it goes live, we're going to ensure that every quick match game is a tank, a healer, and a ranged assassin for each team. To help fill the queue with more tanks and healers and other underrepresented roles, we're going to be providing a 50% XP bonus if you queue for these roles when they're required. All told, we're really excited about Call of the Nexus and eagerly anticipate it coming to the game later this month after Orphea's launch. So it is coming real soon. Next, let's talk about the Stim Pack for a moment. The Stim Pack's a really popular feature in Heroes of the Storm. But it's been around for a long time. It was due for a bit of an update. We call this new feature Boosts. Boosts still provide 100% extra XP and 50% gold per match while they're active. But now, we add an extra benefit. In any game when a boost is active, every player in that match that's boost active will provide a 5% stacking XP bonus for every other player in that game. Knowing that you're sharing the benefit of boost, we think just makes it feel better, makes it feel more fun. Because after all, sharing is caring, right? Yeah, I really hear it, guys. You obviously believe that sharing is caring. You gotta tap in, all right? Let's talk about ranked play in Heroes of the Storm. At its heart, Heroes is a team-based competitive experience, and we want to bring that aspect of the game to the fore in 2019. This year, we received a ton of feedback from the player base on the ranked experience. Several big pieces of feedback, not the only pieces, mind you, but several big pieces of feedback follow. First, Team League queues are too long, okay? We made some changes recently to address that, but let's keep going. Add Duo queue back to Hero League. Another good piece of feedback, right? Add Duo queue. We used to have that back when Hero League first came out. We can understand why that came back. Same time, never add Duo queue back to Hero League. Blizzard never do this. Don't listen to point 2. Only listen to point 3. Every time this comes up, the feedback is split down the middle. That's on the dev team. That is in the audience. Right? That's just reality. It's okay. That's what makes system design so much fun. You're gonna end up angering someone. We made some changes to Team League recently to kind of get around this. Initial effort to address all these concerns, we basically removed all of the party size queue requirements for Team League. So now, as of our last update, you can queue as solo, as a four-player party, in any configuration that you like. That's actually had pretty good implications for Team League playtime across the board. So, from region to region, we saw a pretty big increase from 4x to 12x in some cases in terms of Team League participation after we made this simple change. Now, these were not players who just abandoned Hero League to play Team League. The overall ranked player base increased dramatically after we made this change. People get into games, and find more opportunities to play. Very, very significant for us. Really excited to see these changes, and the numbers continue to do well. To that end, I mean, we're not done. You know, this is a really good change, but there's a lot more we want to do the ranked play experience. And to that end, as we look forward in 2019, our long-term plans involve a reimagining of ranked play in Heroes of the Storm. Are you ready to hear about this? Yeah. All right. First, we're going to be combining Hero League and Team League together while providing an option for solo players to only be matched against other solo players if they choose. This will allow for more flexibility in the matchmaker to find each player opponents of appropriate skill. Next, it can be intensely frustrating to have a player on your team disconnect in the middle of a ranked game. How many players has this happened to recently? You know, we continue to make improvements with our AI system. We continue to make improvements with our reconnection system, which we actually just released some good updates for 2 months ago. Those things keep getting better. That doesn't change the fact that when you have an AI player on your team, sometimes it just doesn't feel as fair. We understand. In any ranked match, when you're playing and one player on your team disconnects and doesn't return for a significant length of time, your defeat in that game will not result in a loss of MMR or rank points. Leavers who abandon their team in the moment of their greatest need, those people are going to be, they're going to be penalized. If it happens, now you can't control every time that you have to leave a game. Sometimes your kid wakes up if you're my age. You know, sometimes your computer falls apart. You know, sometimes it just happens. But if it happens regularly over the course of the season, you will start seeing stacking penalties over time. Next, right now at the beginning of every season, for the uninitiated, you have to go through 10 placement games. Ends up being about 3.5 hours of you waiting to start seeing your points change, but not seeing them change yet. Seeing your points change is part of what makes ranked play fun. We recognize that. I feel like a bit of a chore sometimes to go through this many placement games. So we're reducing that number from 10 to around 3. But at the same time, we're going to be adding a new seasonal rank quest. Now, the idea here is that when we do this, players are going to, when they finish their placement games, their 3 placement games, they're going to get a quest line to ask them to finish a set number of games inside ranked play in order to earn their end-of-season rewards. So, you don't just get your end-of-season rewards for finishing your 3 placement games and then never coming back. Right? You're going to have to finish your season quest line and get the rest of that stuff, along with a few extra goodies along the way. I agree. I feel the same way. Next, we're going to remove promotion and demotion games. Honestly, what it comes down to is that the anxiety surrounding promotion and demotion games is not fun. It ends up, like looking at the data, a lot of players will hit one of these moments and stop. And they don't return for the season because they don't want to have that feeling of like, I'm Diamond 5, I'm a Diamond player, I'm on your demotion game, you had a bad night, and you got that demotion game lingering in front of you, and now you're going to get dropped down to platinum, you don't feel that you want to deal with that. Like, it's a reason why players don't come back and bother to play. They don't want to let themselves down. That doesn't feel good. We don't need it. We're going to be removing that. Performance-based matchmaking. KO mentioned this earlier. Last year we talked about performance-based matchmaking, and the idea was very simple. It was a way for us to evaluate player performance based on the hero and the map that they play. It's a way for us to kind of give you a guideline, like this is how well you're doing. But the way we were using it before was we're trying to use it as a way to kind of ascribe where your skill level really is. After a long investigation, we decided to pull back from this feature and invest instead in creating a smoother, more transparent experience within ranked play. Now that said, KO's right. We had the entire system implemented last year. It was running in December. We've had it running in the background the entire year since last BlizzCon, looking at the data, evaluating it, thinking about it, how we want to use it, what's the best way to use it for the player base. What we found is the learnings from that have been really valuable. And we feel that there's great potential here to use this feature to educate players rather than form ladder position. So imagine you finish a match, you're playing Tastar, and you've never played Tastar before, you don't know Tastar from Tastar, right? If you can use this evaluation, this performance-based matchmaking, and you can use the data from this system to kind of evaluate, well, am I shielding and healing enough? Like the average winning Tassadar player, how well do they do? Being able to judge yourself by that is useful, but doesn't necessarily need to move your MMR. And lastly, we're going to be displaying the player's matchmaking rating and removing rank points from ladder calculation. Instead, your matchmaking rating, or MMR, which is a very boring term, will map more directly to a granular ranking system. So if your MMR is 1644, your rank would be Diamond 50. Winning or losing matches will raise or lower your MMR, which would result in an adjustment of your rank. These changes represent a seismic shift in how we approach competitive play in Heroes of the Storm. And we're really very excited about delivering these improvements over the course of 2019. That said, I'd like to welcome the singular, the epic, Matt Cooper up to the stage to talk about content.
Thanks, man. Hey everyone, so I'm Matthew. I'm the lead content designer on Heroes of the Storm. Super awesome to be here. Who here has had a chance to play Orphea?
Well, I mean, I have.
Awesome. You should check her out. She's awesome. We have a deep dive panel that's going to go into more detail about her tomorrow. Definitely check that out. So I often get questions from players, from you guys, why we rework certain heroes. What are our goals? What are we trying to accomplish when we're updating a battleground or a hero? So I did want to shed a little bit of light on that. So the game is always evolving, and we're learning so much more about the game over time. When we release a new character into the game, we have a chance to play maybe hundreds or maybe even 1,000 games internally of that character as we're kind of developing it. But as soon as we release that character live to you guys, start playing alongside you and getting your feedback, that's when we really learn how this character fits into the meta and what talents are viable. And so these are great. This is a lot of information for us to use to really update these heroes and improve them. So if you take a character like Brightwing, for example, she's been in the game for a while, and then over time, we've added a bunch of new characters. They've changed the meta. They've added new play styles. And really, over time, Brightwing might kind of fall out of favor. She might not be the best healer, or she doesn't do something unique that other healers don't do anymore. And so we really want to use this opportunity to rework her, which we did back in September. And when we rework heroes, oftentimes we're looking to update talents. We want to make sure that there's multiple viable talent builds. You feel like you can play the character in multiple ways. And in some cases, we'll even update the core kit and adjust core mechanics. So in Brightwing's case, we gave her an active cleanse on her trait. Now, this being a What's Next panel, I did want to share our next reworks. So these are coming in December. They're still a few weeks off. So we're just going to take kind of a high-level look at them. And first off, we have everyone's favorite Hook character, Stitches.
Hook character.
So whenever we're doing a rework, really whenever we're developing new content to the game, one of the things we ask ourselves is, what is the fantasy of playing as this hero? And it basically comes down to, what do players want to do with this hero? Why are players playing as this character? As Joe mentioned, we're changing our role-based system. Stitches is currently a warrior. So we had to ask ourselves, okay, well, which category is Stitches going to be in the new system? And we definitely see him as a tank. He's a large frontline character who can get in between the enemy team and his team. And Hook definitely sets up, initiations for his team, lets his team choose fights on their terms. And speaking of hooks, we love this ability. We think it's awesome. And what do we mean by epic hooks? This is a good example of it. This is, Towers of Doom, where poor little Chromie's trying to capture some points for her team at the altar, and Stitches has Fishing Hook.
Oh, poor.
He has a lot of range on this. But even outside of this scenario, even just pulling someone into your team and choosing when the team fight's going to happen, and the counterplay of dodging hooks feels really good. So we love this ability. So going into the rework, we're going to look to keep Hook awesome. We don't think this ability needs any significant changes. In fact, we want to level up a lot of the rest of Stitches' kit to make it as awesome as Hook is. So Slam, as an example, is a pretty vanilla ability. It just does a little bit of damage in a cone in front of Stitches. There's not a lot of decision-making that goes into using this ability. You can't really do any big plays with this. You just kind of use it on cooldown. So we definitely think this is an opportunity for us to kind of upgrade this ability, give players more active decision-making when they're using Slam. And of course, with any rework, we're looking to kind of level up all the talents and look for other areas in the base kit where we can make Stitches more fun to play and feel more impactful and even more unique. All right, so beyond Stitches, there's also another rework that'll be coming with him in December. And that is Sylvanas. So again, another one of our kind of more original characters we've had in the game for a while. And going back to kind of what are our goals, what are we looking at? It's the same approach again. We're looking at the fantasy of, who is Sylvanas? What kind of gameplay are players chasing when they're playing as Sylvanas? And Sylvanas is a little unique in this regard because she has such a strong fantasy from, Warcraft or even World of Warcraft versus heroes. So in World of Warcraft, she's the war chief of the Horde. She burned down a tree. In Heroes, she's a character that has a very unique playstyle. She's a specialist character, and we did say specialist is going away with the role updates. We'll talk about that in a second. But we say specialist, she's shutting down towers, pushing minion waves, and we like this mechanic. It's very unique. There's no other character that does this, but we think there's potentially an opportunity to make this more interesting. All right, so Specialist is going away. We're going to position Sylvanas as an epic ranged assassin. We think this better fits her Warcraft vibe of being someone who can, get in the middle of an enemy team and be very, terrifying. She's super powerful. And we're going to kind of approach this by looking at her talent tree and looking for options where we can introduce a lot of really powerful talents. For example, she has her Windrunner talent on her Haunted Wave where she can use that to, play really aggressively and then actually get more damage out of that. And we think that's a really fun play style. So we want to look for more opportunities to add talents like that to her. Now, talking about her trait a little bit, Black Arrows, where she can push down a lane until the enemy really deals with her. She could potentially go all the way to the core by herself. Again, this is really unique. There's no other character that has this playstyle. We really like that you can build whole team compositions around this, and there's a lot of strategy associated with this. So we want to keep aspects of it, but we do want to level up and give players a little bit more decision making. The fact that this trait is always active, the fact that there's not always a lot of counterplay in some situations, we think we can do better, level this up, and give players more choices. All right, so both those reworks will be coming in December. We'll be talking about them more in the next few weeks, so stay tuned to learn more of the details. So moving on from Heroes and Battlegrounds, let's talk a little bit about kind of the core gameplay. So we look to, again, with content evolving over time, us learning new strategies, we look to how the game is playing as a whole and see if there's areas where we can level up that game experience. Especially at events like this, at BlizzCon, where we have our HGC finals, our best Heroes players in the world, which I hope you guys are checking out, today and tomorrow competing. We're going to see strategies that we haven't seen before. We're probably going to see team compositions and so on that we didn't anticipate. And so these are all great tools for us to look at how do we make changes for this game? How are we going to improve this game and make it better? And so when I'm talking about gameplay updates, here is some of the stuff we did last year. We pulled out the camera to give players a wider view of the battlefield so you can be more strategic. Regeneration globes turn neutral after a little while, and this allows you to maybe play aggressively and pick up more globes. And then tower ammunition, we removed this. We think it cleaned up a lot of the lane matchups. Now, overall, we're pretty happy with all of these changes. We have heard player feedback regarding tower ammunition, making some of the solo lane matchups a little more static and not as dynamic. We think that's totally valid feedback. We're not going to go back on tower ammunition, but we're going to look for other ways in the future to make those solo lane matchups more interesting, potentially with like some of our mana changes we've done earlier this year or other things. And so looking forward for this year, our major focus for gameplay updates was around making games close. We feel like the best game experience is when you have two teams that are evenly matched. The game is very back and forth, and it feels like both teams have the opportunity to win. Every little decision matters throughout the course of a match. These are the epic matches that we like, and we want to chase more of these. And so when we look at a game like this, and this is probably a quick match comp, because the teams aren't great, but kind of, you can tell that the left team, red, is winning. They've won the map objective. They've got, map control. But kind of the main thing we're focusing on here is the difference in team levels. So in this case, they're up 3 levels. They're up that really powerful level 16 talent tier. And even then, they're probably starting to get close to level 20 by the time blue gets to 16. So we wanted to look at our experience system and see if there were ways where we could keep games closer instead of them snowballing out of control. We found that, in general, we award a lot of experience from destroying structures. So if you take a front wall or a fort or a keep, you actually earn your team a lot of experience. And this is a good reward for playing aggressively and pushing, but it also means that when you win a map objective, if you're on, say, Infernal Shrines and you win the Punisher, you're probably already winning a little bit because you won the map objective, and now your reward is to go take down, an enemy fort, and now you're going to get more experience and continue to get further and further ahead. And in some cases, this can start to snowball and lead for the game to kind of get out of hand. So we want to address this and make some changes. So to go over all the specifics of what we've done with experience, we iterated a lot internally for quite a few months. Here's what we're actually changing. So forts and keeps are worth no experience at all with this change. Towers are worth 50% less experience, so you'll still gain some from pushing that front wall, just not as much. And we did like how fast teams were leveling. We kind of like that cadence. So we're adding experience back in other ways. So the passive trickle is going up a little bit, and mercenaries are actually worth a lot more experience now. So overall, teams are leveling at about the same rate. And we feel like the games have been a lot closer internally. We've had much more competitive matches that feel epic, and they're back and forth. So as we were iterating on this and playtesting of this over the course of several months, we did start to get some feedback internally that it didn't always feel great to be aggressive and push down a fort and really take that risk and go for that, because you weren't getting a lot out of it. You were taking away some map presence from your opponents. They didn't have that safety location on the battleground anymore, but that wasn't always enough. And when we started digging into that, we realized we weren't getting that same feedback about keeps. Even though keeps also don't give any experience, players still felt very rewarded from destroying a keep because you start spawning catapults in those lanes. And so that's the change we're doing. Now when you destroy a fort, you'll actually start to spawn catapults in those lanes, but not all the time, only every third minion wave. And so really the goal here is to shift this advantage away from a power advantage where you just have a higher level and more stats than your opponents, into a more strategic advantage where there's back and forth decision making, and you can potentially try and time pushes around having a catapult in that lane, and the enemy team has to respawn, but they're not just down for the count. And here's an example of that catapult where the team has destroyed that fort in that top lane, and now they actually have that catapult, and they can try and make some plays and some strategic decisions around having this. All right, so moving on from those changes that make matches a lot closer, we also wanted to focus on our armor system. This is a very significant system in the game, and there were two areas where we wanted to improve on armor. So on the gameplay side, we started to receive a lot of feedback from some of our pro players that armor stacking and building team comps and drafting around having a lot of armor was kind of the best way to play, and that was dominating their decision making. And so we knew this wasn't exactly what we wanted. We didn't want teams to think about how many ways can we stack armor buffs onto a single character. On the UI side, we didn't do a good job of communicating how much armor players had. In fact, we don't show how much physical armor you have or how much spell armor you have unless you actually select the player and dive into their stat breakdown. And so we knew we wanted to address that. So with our updated UI, we'll now show all armor types at all points right next to your health bar. So if you've ever played as Raynor and you attack Cassia and you wonder why you're not doing a lot of damage to her, unless you've played as Cassia, you might not know that her trait gives her a ton of physical armor while she's moving. So now that will be a lot clearer to players. On the gameplay side, we're removing armor stacking. So it's going to work a lot like our movement system, where we take your biggest buff and your biggest debuff, we put those together, and that will be how much armor you will have. So you still want to think about how you're drafting your team comps, and you can still bring multiple characters that have armor, but you're going to want to stagger it now instead of stacking those all at the same time. On the gameplay side, that's allowed us to revisit a lot of heroes, abilities, and talents, and make sure that these armor effects are more meaningful on their own now that we don't have to worry about them stacking. All right, so we hope you have a chance to play Orphea later. That's all we have to share for today. We will have a few minutes for questions, So you guys can start queuing up for the mics, and while we're waiting for that, we're going to play that same awesome video that we showed during opening ceremony. Check it out.
You really want to see what I can do?
Impudent child.
Someone should probably stop us.
I'm Kevin from the Heroes dev team, and I'm here to announce your game.
Hey guys, so just really quick before we dive into questions, it looks like we only have about 5 minutes left, so we're only going to be able to take a handful of questions.
Yep.
Hi, I'm actually asking on behalf of this gentleman right here. He was the gentleman from BlizzCon 2015 who asked for the clock on the dashboard screen. Thank you for that. His dashboard screen question this year is about post-game analysis notes section. Could that be a reality?
That's a great question. So post-game stat tracking is one of the many things we'd like to start looking at as part of the education systems in Heroes of the Storm in 2019. We've got, right now, there are APIs built in place that some sites take use of, but they're very minimal. There's a lot more we want to do in terms of investment on that as well. So look forward to seeing some of these changes. I don't have a date for them, but look forward. These are things we're talking about. This is stuff that we want to include in the game. Good question.
MMR question. About how old does the MMR you keep on your account before it gets rid of? So if you have someone who's been in the alpha, is these stats from the alpha gone?
So if the last time a player played during the alpha, it was like, let's say it was like years ago, when last time you played the game, your MMR doesn't like erode over that time. Different points in time during different seasons of rank play kind of handled like the idea of reseeding a player back into rank competitive play differently. Most recently, we try to go back and use the last good MMR that we have, the last known MMR we have, going back to the previous seasons, and that's what we decided to seed the player back in at.
And one follow-up question with the armor stacking. Tyrande talent lets her stack spell armor. How does that work on the new stacking system?
Yeah, so our design team went through all of those abilities and talents, and for characters that, you know, a talent allowed it to stack with itself, we've kept a lot of those. It's just if Tyrande's giving you armor, Yrel won't also be able to give you armor to stack from two different sources. So we've kind of gone through and done it on a case-by-case basis.
Hello, I'm super pumped about the UI updates around armor, so really appreciate that. What other things are you thinking about improving clarity? One thing that comes to mind is merc camps and understanding when to get those merc camps.
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. This is the thing that the live balance team talks about, the hero team talks about, the UI teams talk about, my teams talk about. So showing like merc timing is a thing we've talked about. We've actually done a lot about experimenting with like reducing the size of like health bars and hero selection rings, doing more to kind of reduce clutter on screen. We experimented with like things we could do with like the maps themselves, like reducing maybe the number of bushes and things that we find, just to kind of just to see what it feels like to play the game in this like with a slightly more, I won't say barren, but like
streamlined.
Yeah, a little more streamlined experience. It's been interesting. Yeah, I don't have anything specific to announce yet, but it's
anything with the hero selection screen? There's a lot of heroes now.
So right now, what we're doing is we have changes we'd like to make to Hero Select. We actually, I can't talk about the feature yet. There's a feature we're talking about for Hero Select. It's a very different interface that we're probably going to be talking about, looking at later next year.
Gotcha.
But I don't want to mention anything just yet. It's Blizzard soon right now. All right.
Thank you.
So last year we got a lot of incredible stuff, and I'm really happy to be seeing it coming this year. But are the things that, especially the rank changes, are they set like it's gonna happen, we're gonna see them soon, or is it another thing that you're just looking at?
No, these are things. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
All right. These are things we're actively working on. We're going to be releasing them over the course of 2019 across the seasons, however, not like dropping everything in one patch. We want to test things out, see how every individual change makes an impact, and then continue to go from there. But we are committed to these changes.
Awesome. Also, you showed a Dark Nexus Dehaka skin. I'm still waiting for that.
Noted.
Noted. Then we have time for one more.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
Hey, guys. I really like the XP and catapult changes, but I wanted to know how specifically you wanted those to affect Towers of Doom specifically.
Yeah, so we, Towers of Doom and Ultrich Pass don't have catapults in the traditional sense. So that's a great question. I believe on Towers of Doom, we might have kept some of the, I think Towers of Doom is one of our closer back and forth maps because of, winning the map objective doesn't necessarily give you a big experience lead. In fact, it doesn't give you any experience. Yeah. But I want to say on that battleground, we might have actually kept the towers and the fort and keeps XP the same and not spawn catapults. On Ultrich Pass, we do spawn the Reaver minion, which is basically the equivalent of the catapult on that battleground. But we had to tune it down significantly because early on it was like the first time you killed a fort, you were pushing the keep hard.
All right, awesome, thanks.
Thank you. It looks like we're out of time, guys.
Sorry we ran out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
Catch us at the con.